is the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS show with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, everybody? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome to the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook Show. We have 6 games here on a Wednesday, and it has been a pretty interesting day so far today when it comes down to the injury news, who is in, who is out. We are waiting on a certain tweet from a specific somebody to let us know whether or not he is playing today.
No pun intended there. Let us know.
Let us know. You know?
Let him know.
Let him know. We'll find out whether or not Donovan Mitchell will let us know if he is in or out of the lineup. For those of you who haven't followed along, Donnie Mitch will tweet out, let him know, from his Twitter account between the hours of like 4 and 6 o'clock on game days here to let us know that he's in the lineup. So we'll see if that one breaks out today. Obviously, the Luka Doncic news still listed as questionable. The Brooklyn Nets ruled out a bunch of guys. Tari Eason's was midday questionable here. So, news that we hope to break during the show. Slate starts at 7 o'clock. Late night hammer time is 8:30 though, so it's a pretty consolidated early slate for many, especially out on the West Coast. If you live out there, these games are starting at 4 and 5 o'clock. You'll be done before dinner. You'll know if you're winning 100K. So a lot to get to. It is only 6 games here, so we'll go pretty quick through these positions. But if you guys have any questions, want to throw them in chat like Albert does right here, saying hello. What's up, Albert? Feel free to do so. We're happy to answer any questions you got, any better questions that you may happen to have. If you're in the Battle Royal streets over on Underdog, James and I have been talking a lot about how you can get Donovan Mitchell in round 3, right now, depending on your draft position and how early he is going. Earlier in the day, he had an ADP of 15. Last checked, his ADP was like 12.8. So going earlier and earlier in drafts here. Where do you go and attack with Brooklyn? So a lot to talk about when it comes to today's slate, man.
It's a fun one. Despite all the news, like there's a lot of different directions you can go. I've been giving out some ownership teasers on Twitter today, John. You can find that ownership at fantasyalarm.com. But obviously after that Brooklyn news broke, everyone's playing Brooklyn. Yeah. And I before we get into everything, I find it interesting because you look at their injury report, all those two-way guys, John, active tonight.
Mm-hmm.
They have 13 guys if Dorian Finney-Smith plays. Usually when 5 rotation pieces are ruled out, including Lonnie Walker and Ben Simmons, who play every game, right? Multiple minutes a game. Usually you don't have 13 guys to go to.
Right.
But Brooklyn being on a back-to-back here, ruling out Dinwiddie, Claxton, Cam Johnson, Ben Simmons, Lonnie Walker, potentially Dorian Finney-Smith. It's very interesting to see 13 guys. It's very interesting to hear some comments that head coach Jacques Vaughn has made recently about getting players rest because he thinks he specifically mentioned Mikal Bridges thinking he was burnt out.
Sure.
And then Mikal Bridges played 40 minutes last night and missed all those free throws down the stretch. So it does make you wonder if there's going to be some type of limitations on some of these players tonight, despite all this chalk. There's just a lot of it. Conversely, Giannis, who's ruled or has been deemed questionable, now sees this news with Brooklyn. It's like, okay, well, do we push Giannis, who's dealing with his injury that he's seemingly been dealing with for some time? So there's a lot of parts moving everywhere. We got Kuzma midday downgrade to questionable on the back-to-back as well. And shout out to you, Des. Happy holidays to you and yours as well.
Yeah, it's the injuries. Hopefully, again, we'll get these news. Obviously, the Washington game. We'll get the Kuzma news. We got the Joel Embiid news yesterday, so we at least have that one off the schedule already. You and I and the community are generally keyed in on where to go. Toby is the highest rostered Sixer here this evening. I was maybe a little bit surprised, and maybe I shouldn't be because of pricing. Maxi's actually the 4th highest rostered Sixer tonight. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on where some of the rostership is going? Because you mentioned, when we think Brooklyn and guys being ruled out, or at least when I think Brooklyn and guys being ruled out, I think, all right, like Cameron Thomas, guy can be a bucket. He's not among the top 4 rostered players on Brooklyn here tonight. So, like, what are your thoughts on some of these teams that are ruling guys out, and then where the ownership is finding themselves going today?
I mean, the Brooklyn thing is very interesting because Smith and Sharp are 50% projected. I mean, when you think like just based on rotations, well, Dinwiddie out, Smith in, right? Like, just where the field is going, $4,700 starting point guard. And then Day'Ron Sharp, same thing. And we know Day'Ron Sharp can be a menace in terms of fantasy production.
40 plus fantasy points through the last 3 games.
And now he potentially could start. We've seen a bunch of different situations where like they've started small, but I really don't think you could do that here against
Milwaukee. No, you don't think you can go Royce O'Neal?
I mean, if like they come out Giannis in, and they go and Brooklyn counters and says, you know what we can go Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith in our front court. Right. I mean, that's a death sentence, right? Like that's just what are we doing?
Literally giving up a foot and a half
at 2 positions, right?
Yeah.
So like logically, the Smith and Sharp rostership makes a lot of sense. The rest of it is interesting because there's 13 guys active. Trendon Watford has been in and out of their rotation all year. If you want to play him, like, he is a good fantasy point per minute guy. Royce O'Neal, probably one of the likeliest guys to play 30 minutes, I would say, on Brooklyn tonight. Like if Dorian Finney-Smith were to be ruled out, I would assume Royce O'Neal starts and plays 30 minutes. Like, all right, let me ask you this, John.
Yeah.
How many guys on Brooklyn tonight play 30 minutes? If it just given what, like, we have the data, we just assume that this game is competitive enough to where people can play 30 minutes. Like, how many guys actually play 30 minutes on Brooklyn this evening? Second leg of back-to-back.
I say 2.5.
Thomas.
I still think Bridges plays 30.
Bridges plays 30.
And I would give DSJ an outside shot.
Okay. And then everyone else is just a wild card.
I think everybody else is a wild card.
Yeah. Agreed.
This is a game that also now that spread went from 4 to 8. So, something to worry about there. Getting Magic news. Isaac, Harris, and Ingles all ruled out tonight. So
interesting. The Gary Harris one's interesting.
Yeah.
He's been playing every day.
Right.
Well, that's just something we'll talk about because we just coming off the where were you during the Anthony Black game last night?
Tell me about it, man. 6th overall pick. Maybe he's finding his legs here. Orlando's a 2-point home favorite in that game, so we'll see. But again, for a smaller slate, again, Brooklyn now goes 4 to 8. Right. Washington's an 8-point home dog, so a couple of larger spreads here on this slate, and 240 game total in both. Right, so it's we love Scottie Barnes tonight. But is Washington gonna hang if all of a sudden Kuzma's ruled out?
Right.
You got to worry about that a little bit.
Agreed. There's a lot of moving parts, but I think it makes the slate a lot of fun. Like a lot of this information we don't like. Cleveland, Dallas sitting there 231 in your late night hammer. Dallas is 3-point favorite. We have no idea who's even playing.
Yeah, we know T.H. Shea is now a midday questionable with an illness. Luka Doncic has been questionable now this whole time.
Josh Green upgraded in that game to questionable.
Which makes me think that one of those two aren't playing.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
Yep. Obviously, he fits better as a THJ replacement than a Luka replacement. But we'll see where that one goes. Does Dante Exum then take over? Sure. We assume Donovan Mitchell's playing, but we haven't gotten a tweet yet. I got the note he's turned on.
You got the note he's on. You got the note he's on.
A little worried about it. Now, again, it's the 8:30 late night game. So maybe on these non-7 p.m. starts, he tweets it out a little bit later on in the day. So hopefully by the end of the show, maybe we'll have it. But if he's out, Craig Porter right back in the well, you're just chasing that off. So definitely a lot to get to. Houston, again, Tari Eason. Questionable Dylan Brooks is out tonight after getting injured last night. We talked about on the stream this morning. If Dylan Brooks was out and Tari Eason was out, Eamon Thompson, Aaron Holiday, guys that could, one of those two, Jayshawn Tate, one of those three start tonight.
Yep.
I would assume it would be Tate for Brooks, but who knows? Eamon Thompson had been out for a while when Tate was getting all those run. Maybe Eamon Thompson ended the starting lineup for Dylan Brooks tonight. So could have some value there for Houston. Again, that's an 8 o'clock start time. So definitely a lot of news still to come here when it comes to all of this. Do you got anything else? Any other thoughts? Any other matchups you're looking to target?
I mean, 4 teams on a back-to-back is noteworthy. Washington second leg. 4 teams on the back end of a back-to-back because Dallas is on the front leg. Minnesota tomorrow. So I think that's why we're seeing Luka pop. But Houston second leg of a back-to-back. That's the lowest total on the board. Orlando second leg of a back-to-back. They get Philly without Embiid, obviously. The Washington side of things, 240.5, maybe without Kuzma. And Brooklyn on the back-to-back, they obviously rested half their team. So,
yeah, the front end for Luka is definitely a bit concerning because, as we talked about, it's not just like any front end of a back-to-back. It's a Eastern Conference matchup tonight against Cleveland, and then it's a Western Conference best team in the West maybe matchup against Minnesota. A bit more important for that one to go through for them here. So, to be on the lookout, and if you're kind of picking and choosing where Luka is going to play, it would seem almost more likely if he was to miss one of these 2 games, it certainly wouldn't be the Minnesota game. So, more things to pay attention to. If he is out and THJ is out, Exum certainly becomes a big key here tonight. So, someone to, as we talked about last night, make sure you have a couple of spaces open in your lineup for some roster flexibility. Now, the Moses Brown thing was fine for those of you who played him. Obviously, Duop Reith just smashed the slate at no rostership because everybody pivoted to Moses Brown. The few that kept the 5%, I think it was, that kept on playing Duop Reith, they championed. So,
good for them.
Happy to see this. Let's get into it, though. We got point guard here. If we get any more news, obviously we will break it. So much hate on shaking my head on Patrick Williams yesterday. Yeah, listen, DeRozan sucked in that game. Unless your name was Andre Drummond, you had a bad night for Chicago. So we'll see. We'll see Friday slate. I think we have Chicago on the slate. We'll see what Drummond's price is when locks today here. Luka, SGA, Donovan Mitchell, Booker, Lillard, Maxey, big group up here at the top.
All elite too. And there's obviously a lot of question marks with all of them. Luka, I mean, if Luka plays, we've been saying it for a week and a half, like you're just playing them and you're figuring out the rest of your lineup, and that won't be a problem today. If you play Luka, you do have the Brooklyn value, you do have Philadelphia mid-tier slash value. Like there's plenty of routes you can go. So if Luka's in, obviously love the Luka spot. The Prince, we're just starting, buddy. We were a couple minutes late too. So we just broke down a lot of news and notes, but we're just getting to the positional breakdown. So you didn't miss any, at least you didn't miss any players. You missed out, I guess, some key notes.
We did just get an Orlando lineup, but nothing real different here. Black, Suggs, Franz, Banchero, and Carter.
Okay. Wendell Carter is playing the back-to-back, but probably once again limited, right? I mean, that's the assumption, or limited. Maybe this is just the role. SGA on a back-to-back here, coming off a monster performance against Minnesota, leaves you to like wonder what could have been if he doesn't lose out. Blowout run last night. 33 minutes, 14 of 19 from the floor. The man is just, if Joel Embiid didn't exist this year, he would be right up there in the conversation for MVP, right? I mean, he would be. It doesn't matter because Embiid exists, but he's been fantastic all year. So love SGA. Look, if Donovan Mitchell plays, John, I know it's been, kind of a long illness to be out with, like 9 days. This will be a 9-day absence. He's going to play a lot. If there's just if it's just an illness, there's no expectation, unless we hear limit. Like if there's monitored minutes, forget it. He's playing 40, right? If there's a monitor, he's playing 40 as long as he looks good. Went through shoot around. I'd love Donovan Mitchell team to himself. 1.3 fantasy points per minute, 30% usage rate without Garland and Mobley this year, and it's a pace-up spot against Dallas, against a bottom 10 defense this year. So
listen, Derek Lively obviously has some rim protection capabilities, but he's not an elite rim protector yet. So Mitchell can certainly get to the rim and get to the free throw line. We know he's not afraid to shoot. The minutes, as you mentioned, pretty elite, and And what's he contending with? There's no Karis LeVert, tonight either. Like potentially, there's just a world of shots that could potentially be Donovan Mitchell's way here at a great price. Again, we don't like to pay the $10K for Mitchell and Garland, all that crews in, but they're out, so perfectly fine. How would you rank the guards though? Like if you had to give a list, your power rankings for tonight, give me your run.
What's the tier? What tier am I using, or just the whole position?
Well, I mean, do you want to include Brunson in there, like what, or Barnes? Like, what are you thinking?
I feel like we probably should. I mean, I think Luka's 1 with a bullet if he plays.
Okay.
Would
you play Mitchell over SGA if he's in?
Yes.
Okay.
Just
for the pricing reason, right?
Pricing, eligibility, matchup is fantastic. I know the Knicks matchup is good for OKC, but no back-to-back for Mitchell here. Shea, not that that's mattered too much for Shea at all this year. But Donnie Mitch too. Maxey right there with SGA as well. Again, he took 20 shots and played 44 minutes. It's super hard for him to repeat 44 minutes, 20 shots, and him to go 4 of 20 from the floor. I mean, he's averaging 26 points a night, Orlando been a little more susceptible to scoring lately. We just, saw last night Jordan Poole score 30 against them. The guards have kind of gotten at them.
They have a very undersized front court. Well, Black has changed that. Black is 6'7".
He is big.
Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, like that crew, they're small. So
yep.
Maxey could have had a little bit more of a run on him there.
I'm gonna defer to Scottie at small forward because I don't want to have to include him here because I want him to be by himself at small forward.
Sure.
I mean, if then it gets more muddy, if Giannis sits, like I'd put Lillard up there with everyone. Like he would be on the same tier as Luka.
We got a 70-point game already out of him,
yeah,
right?
Yep. And then the one game we had without Giannis earlier in the year, he went nuclear. So it's like
67 here.
It went he had 37 against Toronto without Giannis.
Yeah.
It's like if I get 67 from Lillard at 9K and you get 70 from Luka at 11.8, like I win that by a mile because I've also just saved $3,000. So that's obviously there. Booker has not been terrible, but we know Devin Booker's upside. Brunson, I'm not against getting to Jalen Brunson tonight, but unless he sees that OKC's jerseys change to green and say Milwaukee on the front, I'm a little less confident that he'll go for 38 or 36 actual.
Maybe he confuses them with Phoenix Orange because he did go for 50 actual.
That's a fair point. Yeah, fair point. He's probably at the bottom, but like super elite tier, even including Brunson. If you end up on getting Jalen Brunson in your lineups, like
it's pretty wild that we literally have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, even Van Vliet. You want to throw in like 8 point guards this year that have all gone for 60 plus in a game.
Yep.
Right. Like it's a pretty elite matchup. Van Vliet against Phoenix. I mean, Van Vliet did go for 41 last night, had the 18, 4-9, gave you some of this. I mean, the minutes are great. I love they got back to shooting. He didn't hit any of his threes. In tournaments, Van Vliet 81.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt if Tari Eason was out, as well as Dylan Brooks. Those two guys, can shoot a lot. The minutes, let's see how the minutes have looked on back-to-backs for Van Vliet. He played 41 minutes on the second leg of a back-to-back earlier this year. So there's not going to be like any type of cap either.
So no, he just plays and he's home. So
yep.
Again, I don't mind going in that direction. You mentioned Jordan Poole's coming off 30 actual. If there's no Kuzma, he could just take a billion shots.
Yep.
Green
light.
Yep. Tyus has been very good lately. He has. He's better. He's maybe been their best player over the last week or plus. I mean, Kuzma's had some tough games. We know Jordan Poole's been inconsistent, but Tyus has been very good.
It's really, really good to see the minutes, right? Like, because there was a stretch where like he was just playing mid-20s, and you're kind of like, eh.
And no DeLon Wright tonight, so like
good point. DeLon Wright ruled out. Yeah, 13 minutes for DeLon Wright last night, which is good to see it not even impact Tyus, really.
Right.
I mean, Tyus still played 34, and we know like DeLon Wright is a good basketball player.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good shout. He'll be super contrarian if you want to get to him.
Yeah, what was funny was this morning when we looked at some of the rostership, the Sixers guys were the ones that were getting all the ownership love. D'Anthony Melton still is a little bit, but not as much as it was. He's down to 25%, but you and I are definitely playing a lot of D'Anthony Melton tonight.
Yeah, I mean, even on a night where he goes 5 for 17, the minutes are there, the stocks are there. The shot attempts are there. He's very good peripherally, and I've said it all year. Like no Embiid, D'Anthony Melton has the highest, tied with Tyrese Maxey as the highest usage bump, almost 7%, and he averages 1.15 fantasy points per minute. 58. That's a $5,800 multi-position player averaging nearly 1.2 fantasy points per minute. When the
he went for
MVP
8x return against Miami there. So and they moved him up slightly, need 35-ish, 37 fantasy points in that range for 5x or 7x return rather. I mean, to get 5x, you only need 29. So very capable of getting you 29 fantasy points, even when like Embiid was playing. So take that off, like you said, 1.2 fantasy points per minute. If he plays 36, you're looking at 40 fantasy points there. So Melton's a core play for us. Guard is loaded. We've talked that ad nauseum here. Thankfully, we can play 4 of them. And depending on some of them, you can play them 5 if you include Barnes with the small forward eligibility on FanDuel. Obviously, you have the 2-point guard, 2 shooting guards, and some of the shooting guards also have small forward eligibility. So you can really get a lot of them. How much interest in Dennis Smith Jr. do you have now that he is the chalk of the slate?
I'm super on the fence about it.
Okay.
So this is one of the situations I was alluding to, and I was trying to, I don't know, not bait is the right word. Okay. I was just seeing when I asked you how many players you think could play 30 minutes. I'm super on the fence about Dennis Smith Jr. because he is the clear backup, right? Like there's no doubt he's the backup on this team. It's just and it has nothing. You're right. Dame Lillard defense, 100% correct. I'm not even doubting Dennis Smith Jr. We've been talking about Dennis Smith Jr. in the backup role, like considering him in that regard.
I did play him last night. Yeah, he had a really good first quarter.
He had a really good first shift.
Kuzma still a game time decision.
Shocker. Any noties? What about the Donnie Mitch noties? Nothing, John?
Well, I got the push noties on.
Let him know.
I'll let you know when he let us know. So
okay. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Dennis Smith going from he's played 27 minutes in a game against Boston, which is so obviously he is capable of doing so. He's been back for 3 games after a back injury that caused him to miss time.
Yep.
I'm just a little worried with Armani Brooks and Keon Johnson both being active for this game, and with Brooklyn just calling all these guys back from the G League. 13 guys. They're just come on down. Second leg of a back-to-back, everybody come.
Sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if Dennis Smith was limited to not limited, but 24 minutes, right? 25 minutes, 26 minutes. If this game gets out of hand, what is Dennis Smith doing on the floor? He's not, right? It's Keon Johnson, it's Armani Brooks. So
I'm okay though if he plays 25 minutes.
Fine, sure. I am as well. I'm just saying
that's why I said 2.5. He's my half.
He's your half, okay?
Right? I think he can get there, but maybe he sits just below it. As Sean said, Dame Lillard defense. I mean, Dennis Smith Jr. has always been an offensive first guard. He is not known for his defense. One of the reasons why I like Dame on the other side is there's a turnstile right now with Cam Thomas and Dennis Smith Jr. potentially starting in the backcourt for the Brooklyn here tonight. So, I think it's a pretty interesting guard matchup, but he fills up the stat sheet. He reminds me a little bit of when we used to play Michael Carter-Williams. Michael Carter-Williams is obviously a lot longer than DSJ was, but just another offensive first guard that will go out there and fill up the stat sheet, and he'll get you some steals and he'll score some buckets. And, if they give him 30 minutes, he could go for 35 fantasy points. We've seen those games out of Dennis Smith Jr. if you're telling me that you think Mikal Bridges is going to be one of those guys get limited here tonight as well, then like where are the shots going to go on the floor, right? So yeah, I'm interested just for the pricing in general as a starter. That's going to be 4,700 on this slate, where there isn't really a lot of other value like this. I mean, unless you're really taking shots on the other Brooklyn backups here, or you are going to play the Philly centers, who at the beginning of the day, the top value on the slate was Paul Reed, and then 3 guys below him was Mo Bamba, and now they're way down the list in terms of value. So, there's some shots to be taken for sure.
Let me ask you this: does the Orlando news ruling those guys out make you interested at all in pivoting, like let's say from Dennis Smith to Anthony Black, who's 4,600 point guard small forward?
I mean, hard.
I know he's a low floor. I know
he's
a
low floor, low usage player, right?
Yeah.
Like at least with Dennis Smith Jr., when we've seen him be on the floor at times, like he has been a higher usage player. I think this year, and he's around 21% with all those guys off the floor. When he's specifically on the floor, he's obviously been an over fantasy point per minute player. So it just, to me, it feels like there's a much higher ceiling. I don't think we would ever see a game where Dennis Smith Jr. is on the floor for 20 minutes and doesn't take a shot. Right? Like that's probably not that's probably not, I don't think anything Dennis Smith Jr. has ever had happen to him in his life. So not really looking at Anthony Black there for me. Maybe makes me more interested in like a Cole Anthony or a Jalen Suggs on the other side, if there's less of a rotation happening there. Because that was 3 wing players. Harris, Ingles, and Isaac all out now. So like, who's playing shooting guard, small forward tonight for Orlando? It's probably Cole Anthony, right? Something like that,
What about Aaron Holiday? What about Aaron Holiday if he starts?
Yeah, we talked about that last night. I don't mind that one. I don't mind Aaron Holiday if he starts, because we've seen him have a good sample size of out there when he's gotten minutes, and it's been relatively productive. I think I would be more comfortable if like other people were out too, like for sure no Tyree Eason. We also knew that he got the 25 minutes last night when Brooks got hurt, and he closed that game as we talked about. I'd like to see Eamon Thompson play more,
right?
Just to see what he looks like out there. Maybe that opportunity comes. So whoever is in the starting lineup for Houston tonight, I would have interest in, because they're going to be cheap. Tate's, I think, $3,400.
Yeah, he's free.
38. Tate's 33. Eamon Thompson is 33. I mean, if one of those two start, I would play him just for the value. So
right.
Shooting guard position, we talked Donnie Mitch and Booker and that crew already. Where are you with Cameron Thomas? I told you right before we went on air, if you take off in the 50-minute sample size this year, if you take off Ben Simmons, Cam Johnson, Lonnie Walker, Nick Claxton, and Spencer Dinwiddie, Cameron Thomas has a 40% usage rate, which is elite. So there is a chance that if he plays 30, now he only played 23 last night. So if you're thinking limitations, well, was he limited on the front end to play the heavy minutes on the back end?
He doesn't play defense. So
sure.
I think that was probably more so like, we're going to lose to Brooklyn. You're not, or we're going to lose to Detroit. Like, you're not playing if you can't defend. So
Paul Reed officially starting, by the way.
Paul Reed officially starting. Good. We talked about that last night. I think that was like, expected. And now Mo Bamba revenge is obviously a thing. People want to play Mo Bamba against the team that drafted him, but maybe the minutes were limited in one, like partly because there's a back-to-back, partly because he struggles defensively, and like their starting lineup has the worst net rating in the NBA with player lineups that have played 100 minutes together, which is, I told you yesterday, like Jacque Vaughn's been talking about switching up the starting lineup, but like he'll just do it on his own time.
All right.
I assume Cam Thomas plays freely here and as many minutes as he can handle, as long as the game's competitive. But I guess like based on the last 2 games, is that for certain? If like he continues to struggle defensively, like I don't know.
His one game against Milwaukee this year, played 40 minutes, had 45 actual.
I mean, he's undoubtedly like an elite scorer. It's
Yeah.
just you see it. Like, and can they afford to take him off the floor tonight? I mean, they have 13 guys as long as if Dorian Finney-Smith plays. So I guess it
How
remains to
many
be
of them can
seen.
score, I guess, is the question.
I mean, it's a super valid point, but are
Right.
you resting all those guys thinking that you're going to beat Milwaukee?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't
you're
know.
probably not, but you gotta get some offense out there.
I'm not. I'm fine with Cam Thomas. I'm just
Okay.
again. He has dude. He could score 40. It wouldn't surprise me if he scored 40 actual tonight. I'm just saying there's like weird. I have weird vibes with Brooklyn tonight. That's all I'm saying. Just weird vibes.
All right, that's fine. Jordan Poole is here at 76. We mentioned Max Strus, $6,900. Jalen Green lost his rotation spot at one point last
Nice.
night. Maybe with guys out tonight, they just play him no matter what. As I mentioned, I think Cole Anthony is a bit more appealing now with those guys out. I have to assume he probably approaches 30 minutes tonight, which we've seen him be buckets before. So where are you going to mid-tier shooting guard?
Cam Thomas. Obviously, if Mitchell's out, we go to Strus. Jalen's in the no-fly zone for me, John. Like I know guys may be out. Maybe he does play if Tari Eason sits, but 2022, 27 minutes, 3 straight games. I know one of them was the Houston blowout, but still, he shot less than 40% in 4
Right.
straight games too. Like he looks terrible right now. I do like Anthony in tournaments. I do think, he provides a bench spark that they're going to need without any of those other guys.
Do you
Three
think he
of their
takes
bench.
away from if he was to play 30-some minutes tonight? Does he take away from Franz and Banchero at all?
Like production
Yeah.
wise, yeah, I do. But like I'll always, it's hard to like predict a night where Cole Anthony plays 30 minutes, right?
Sure.
It's really fluid. Where like Franz and Paolo are going to play 36 plus in every competitive game. So like,
Mhm.
yeah, I do think that he can. He's also a good passer and whatnot. So um, they can coexist, but I do think he would hurt them. Chris Middleton, obviously 6,400. The minutes are fantastic. Again, 33 minutes of back-to-back games, 16 and 20 shots in those games, 20 actual in those games. Like if there's no Giannis,
Right.
I mean Chris Middleton's a plug and play shooting guard, small forward. Hardaway is a little scary now that he's on the injury report, but if he plays and Josh Green doesn't, I would be okay getting there. But like then you have the Philly guys here, 58, 57 respectively, that like you probably just get to.
Yeah, 39 minutes, 40 minutes for Oubre the other day. Gave you 44 fantasy points. We've seen these games out of him over the course of his career. We talked about it. You take a guy like Joel Embiid off the floor, and that usage gets somewhere. And Maxey had a terrible night, and it got picked up. It got picked up by Oubre. It got picked up by Tobias Harris. So, can you rely on another 44 fantasy points tonight? It feels like that was a ceiling game for him. But it was in Miami against Miami, which we generally consider to be a pretty tough spot. Now, in Orlando, it hasn't been much better for many teams this year. Orlando's been a pretty good team. So, but I'm fine playing both. Again, there's some clear value on this slate. This being more of a mid-tier play, but where if you're looking to build lineups starting with Luka, you're going to have to play more 5K and 4K guys in there.
Agreed.
Grayson Allen's coming off of a ceiling game. I always like Grayson Allen, but I don't think he's going to get you there. If Kuzma gets ruled out, does Coulibaly become any more interesting to you?
Yeah, I guess that would be an interesting like what they do with their lineup. They still haven't officially even ruled out Danilo Gallinari. He has not played. He's not been cleared for back-to-back, so I assume we get the Gallo news as well. So then they have like just question marks. Maybe they slide Denny to start at the 4 and Coulibaly enters the starting lineup. We've seen Coulibaly start this year. So if he were to start, I'd be interested. I don't like 5,600, truthfully. That's a very uncomfortable price tag for me to get to. But if he's starting it, could be slightly more interesting.
Yeah. Any of these guys down here in value tier for shooting guards? Quickly, probably.
Yeah, he's fine. He's low floor in minutes, right? But he has high upside scoring the basketball.
Okay. Anybody else?
You mentioned the Houston guys like Amen Thompson here,
Sure.
so nothing else really stands out.
Small forward position, we have Scottie Barnes here up by himself at $8,700. One of our favorite plays of the slate, cover of the show for tonight. Went for 45 fantasy points against them in the last game, had 5 steals in that one, coming off of a 63 fantasy point game, over 50 in 3 of the last 4. Obviously, a pretty strong matchup for the Wings of Toronto tonight. We didn't mention Gary Trent at point guard or shooting guard, but
No.
he's playing a lot of minutes as well, so probably could find some builds there.
It was interesting to see Scottie Barnes actually usurp Siakam in ownership, huh? Like this feels like one of the first times we've seen that. Scottie Barnes actually the 3rd highest projected rostered play of the day behind Dennis Smith and Daron Sharp. And, that has a lot to do with he has the goated eligibility. Like you don't see point guard small forward too often. You also don't get someone in this playing this well in a spot against Washington all too often either. So if he continues to be this good, then I mean he could approach 60 fantasy points again tonight. So
yeah, agreed. Speaking of 50 fantasy points, as we got out of Franz last night, finally got him right, played him all over the place, an underdog. 28-8-9. Pretty usual stat line for him. Gets Philadelphia here, not having to deal with Joel Embiid in that front court. Going to be more so Kelly Oubre, Tobias Harris. Any interest at 7,900 for Wagner tonight?
I mean, you talked about it. Like the 0 assists were such an outlier in the game prior that there was obviously positive regression coming there, and then you get, nearly a triple double from Franz Wagner. So I would be perfectly fine getting to most of Orlando tonight. I mean, most of is loose, but like they're missing 3 key rotation pieces. The offense flows through 2 guys, Franz and Paolo, and then when Cole Anthony comes off the bench, like that's their offense. They use those 3 guys as the hub everywhere. So perfectly fine getting to Franz 79. Mikal Bridges is my one question mark of the day, and this could definitely bite me big time, like really badly. Obviously, played 40 minutes last night, wasn't very good. Hasn't been very good outside of one game against Detroit lately, and this is a situation where I'm telling you, I think Mikal Bridges in some capacity is limited. And I don't know, you need 20. So he obviously has this Iron Man streak where he has never missed a game in his NBA career. He's played every single game that he has been eligible for in his NBA career. He even played 83 regular season games last year when he was triggered. So he was the first player to ever do that. You need to get credit for the game. You need to play 20 minutes. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if they get him past that number and he just kind of coasts. Maybe he sits, maybe he plays one more shift and then comes out. Jacques Vaughn has talked about wanting to get him rest because he looks burnt out. He has not looked good at all during this recent stretch, really. And I think that's obviously direct correlation to probably being burnt out from all the minutes and games that he plays. Because, he even didn't take a break. He went and played for Team USA this summer too. Like, so just again, all these guys resting. They have a full team. Second leg of a back-to-back on a night where he played 40 minutes. I am taking a stand specifically. Like, I'm going to have a share of Dennis Smith, and I'm going to probably have a share of Cam Thomas. I drafted Cam Thomas in an underdog team today.
Yeah.
I am telling you right now, this is me, and I will eat the bullet if he goes off or he scores 50 actual. I am full fading Mikal Bridges tonight, and I'm confident about it. Like, I'm fairly confident that I think that we're going to see a limited version of Mikal Bridges I am not confident he plays 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, again, there's a lot of good arguments he made. As you mentioned, they called up, to have their entire G League roster to play tonight. So that's why I was mentioning with the Cam Thomas thing. Cam Thomas played the 23, Bridges played the 40. If you think there's some limitations, it feels like there's more room for Cam Thomas to play the minutes. So Struce down here, Jalen Williams coming out for a pretty decent night. Denny could be someone that takes a big uptick should we see Kyle Kuzma sit out this evening than Toby here at 6,400.
Yeah, I think it's probably Toby, right? I mean, gets Orlando coming in on a back-to-back. He's been fantastic in the last 2 games. Like, not good paced environments either, much like this Orlando game's going to not be a good paced environment. 47, 57 fantasy points, multi-position eligible. I really like Tobias Harris. I'm willing to play multiple Philly guys again, even with this Brooklyn news. Like, let me ask you this: if the salary doesn't matter when you're constructing your lineups, would you rather play Brooklyn or Philly tonight? If salary doesn't matter,
Philly.
Philly, right? That's how I feel as well. I feel better about the Philly players than I do about Brooklyn for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Exum obviously would be a pretty elite play if Luka and Hardaway were ruled out tonight. It's 6K for him. OG, someone I think you can always kind of be as a pivot play off of. If you're stacking this game and you can't go Siakam and Barnes, but you go Barnes and OG or Siakam and OG, that feels pretty good.
Yep, agreed.
If Eason is in, I like him. I have no problems playing him. He played bigger minutes on the second leg of a back-to-back the last time he played back-to-back, so not truly worried about that with him there. Obviously, he could even start tonight with no Brooks. So
he came in for Brooks. He came in for Brooks yesterday after he left with the injury.
Yeah, so big. Again, we know Tari Eason's a fantasy point per minute monster here. 32 fantasy points in 26 minutes last night, coming off their bench. Look at these steals, man. 2, 2, 4, 2, 2, 1, 2. Just consistently out here, giving you defense, giving you rebounding, and we know what the scoring upside certainly could be for sure. Many of these other guys down in the low spot, DFS ruled out tonight, by the way. So one more man out for the Brooklyn Nets here this evening.
So I think Derek Jones. I would really like it if Josh Green stayed away for Derek Jones.
Sure.
I know Derek Jones is the starter, but we've seen Derek Jones start and play 19 minutes as well when Josh Green was healthy and stuff. So I would like to get to Derek Jones at 5K if I knew Josh Green was out. And maybe even if Josh Green returns, if that means Hardaway's out, right? Because then Derek Jones probably still stays safe because one of those guys is not in the lineup. So Derek DJJ, because we like to, do that whole thing, is fine at 5K. We talked about Anthony Black. Jayshawn Tate is obviously a little bit interesting at 3,800. Just a little, mildly interesting. I don't think there's anything else though, unless
I'm pulling up the core IQ just to take a look at Houston here. With what do we got? With where is he? Dylan Brooks off the floor. Probably not a huge difference. He's not like a big usage guy anyways, but Şengün obviously dominates. Easton's got a 21% usage rate, 1.1 fantasy point per minute. Şengün 1.27. That's about it. Not really a ton. Jayshawn Tate is a 12% usage rate, so no thanks.
Would you play Royce O'Neal? Would you play Royce O'Neal if he's starting 5,100?
Yeah. I mean, we know what Royce O'Neal can be, right? Some rebounding, some defense. Occasionally knocks down some threes, so I'm fine going there. Okay. Yeah. Again, another guy that has played big minutes in the past, so certainly could be fine. Any other small forwards for you? Okay. Power forward then. Giannis at the top. We're obviously waiting for that news. Yep. Durant, Randall. I've been coming around on Randall a little bit. What are your thoughts?
Dude, he's playing monster minutes.
Right.
With their injuries in the front court. So to not have to extend Taj Gibson any more than they have to, they can use Randall at the 5.
Yeah, I like the price tonight at $8,500. It's just a little bit cheaper than he's been. He's mentioned scoring's been really good, rebounding's been pretty decent. So, just kind of looking at him a little bit harder than I had the last hour or so. Banchero 83, obviously a strong play. Siakam, pretty good. Jabari is interesting because we've seen what happens when Tari Eason is in the lineup and absorbing a lot of that usage. But if Tari Eason was to be ruled out and Dylan Brooks is ruled out. We've also saw some big games out of Jabari Smith lately. How are you feeling about him in this spot against Phoenix?
I mean, he's been way better at home this year too. You look at his splits. So I'm probably only getting to a 7,500 Jabari if Tari Eason was out. That's
Okay.
Maybe we get to him if they're starting alongside one another, because then I don't think there's a case where he doesn't play 30 minutes, right?
Sure.
Tari
won't replace him in the lineup, basically.
Right. So I think if they started next to one another, I'm okay with it. I still lean Eason. He's significantly cheaper and like a better fantasy producer at this point.
Sure.
So, but if 7,500 Jabari, if I land on 7,500 Jabari, as long as if Eason's out, I have a lot of confidence in.
Okay. RJ Barrett's down here at $5,800. Bobby Portis is $55. And then you mentioned Royce O'Neal here at $51.
Portis definitely in play if there's no Giannis, right? I mean, I don't know if they start him. They probably start Andre Jackson because they like to be weird. But Portis would obviously benefit from, what did he play in that Toronto game? He played 31 minutes in that Toronto game that Giannis sat. And I remember he didn't start. So he probably won't start if Giannis sits, but he's going to play a lot of minutes. So I would definitely be interested in Portis if Giannis were to sit. Royce O'Neal, fine, like last piece in. I wanted to ask John about the Trendon Watford ownership coming in. $3,400 power forward center. Trendon Watford, when I pull up Brooklyn, is the second highest rostered power forward of the night, 28%. And that was pre-Dorian Finney-Smith official news. Like, what do you make of Watford? How much exposure of Trendon Watford would you get?
I mean, we know Duron Sharper's also been a foul-heavy guy in his past.
Yes, he sure has.
You know, yeah, you could get to some Watford. I mean, there's a reason why he's. Again, I feel like it's interesting that more people all of a sudden ran right to the Brooklyn centers over the Philly centers.
Yep. Well, Sans Sharp. Well, Sharp is. Are you saying like Sharp is
originally? Yeah. Like, because originally it was Paul Reed. Now again, we didn't know Claxton was going to be out, but they had their choices once Claxton was ruled out. Play Reed, Bamba, or play Sharp and Watford, and they're like, we're playing Sharp and Watford. There's not like comparable,
right?
Rostership there, right? So Paul Reed is now under 20%, where he was 40% earlier in the day, right? And all that is now Daron Sharp. Trendon Watford's 27%. Mo Bamba was like the fourth highest price person. Now he's all the way down under 10%. So, if you want leverage, remember the entire field was playing one set of centers, and now they pivoted to another set of centers in a tougher spot, in my opinion. So, that's kind of where I'm looking at it.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee when you talk about like Trendon Watford. There's no guarantee he backs up center minutes either. Like, he might play power forward minutes, especially with Finney-Smith out. Like, you're likely going to see him play behind Royce O'Neal. But they also called up Noah Clowney, who could play the 4. And they have Harry Giles.
Clowney's like leading the G League in shot blocks this year, something like that.
I don't know the official Noah Clowney shot blocking statistics. He's averaged 12, 10, 2 blocks, 2 assists, 1 steal in his first few games. But that was November, so that's a full month of data after that.
Sure.
They also have Harry Giles, who they like. And there was like a whole thing about like getting Harry Giles more run, but they can't because Sharp. Like, I don't know. There's no guarantee Watford plays like 30 minutes here or pays off a $3,400 salary because he plays 8 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm against Trendon Watford. I just wanted to know more so your opinion on like his random ownership spike. You're looking for a Trendon Watford card? That's what I always assume you're looking for Trendon Watford.
No, I don't have a Watford card. I was seeing if that update was Donnie Mitch. It still wasn't.
Sad.
Still not. All right, any other power forwards?
Not
really much down here.
No.
Center. Jojo's out. So what do we do? Got Şengün at $8,400, Chet Holmgren at $7,800, Jared Allen at $73. How are you breaking down center for us today?
Well, there's a lot of fish plays, but there's one sharp play, John.
Oh, jeez.
Look, I think center starts with Daron Sharp tonight, and he's here for a good time, not a long time, because he may foul out in 23 minutes. I definitely think he's not someone who's likely to play 30 minutes because he could be faced with Giannis attacking him for 2 fouls in the first 30 minutes. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. Now he's a great fantasy point per minute guy. I think you're going to have to take a stand on 50% of the field right now is saying, I'm going to play Daron Sharp because he's a massive fantasy producer. 50% of the field, it's literally split, is saying, he is really foul happy, and I'm not certain that if Giannis plays, he's not going to have 2 fouls in the first 7 minutes of this, 7 seconds of this game. So, you have to take a stand in your mind, whether you think Daron Sharp is going to be able to stay out of foul trouble or not tonight, because we've just seen it. You said it. 40 fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games, 33 or more in 3 of his last 4 games. Only one of those games he's played more than 20 minutes.
Right. What
is he going to play on a night that Nick Claxton isn't there? I mean, you obviously project him for mid-20s. I don't think you can safely project Daron Sharp for 30s because we haven't seen it. But if he plays 24 to 26 minutes, he's probably in the optimal lineup.
Yeah. I mean, we've also talked a lot about, it's difficult to project fouls, with Giannis and Lopez, and Lillard likes to drive to the lane. And, there's definitely, what did Giannis have, like a 30 free throw game earlier this year or something like that? Didn't he?
He did.
So, I mean, there's that. So I do worry. That's why I worry a lot about that. Now, obviously, the Philly side, Banchero gets to the lane a lot, and Wagner gets to the lane a lot. So those guys draw fouls. So, Reed, as we know, immediately just got all the fouls the other day. So Mo Bamba had the big day. I don't feel like comfortable playing any of these value centers truthfully tonight, but I know that's where the field is going.
How would you rank them?
I mean, for ceiling, you have to put Sharp as 1, right? And then you play this. I would go Reed, Bamba, and Watford. So that's probably how I'd get it for.
That's probably how I'd rank it. I might put Watford ahead of Bamba, but I'm okay if you end up getting Bamba instead.
Sure. Because I don't really know what to do after that, right? I mean, we know who to pay up for. We know Şengün. We know Chet Holmgren, who I think is in a really good spot here tonight.
Yep.
But Hartenstein is sort of his primary defender on this matchup. Jared Allen's coming off of a huge game. I know Donovan Mitchell is at least expected to be back, we think. He hasn't tweeted yet. So
we're getting worried, John. I'm getting worried.
TikTok. Hartenstein's here. Gafford, coming off of a really big game. Gafford's someone now 3 of the last 5, 56, 45, 43. And Toronto, he had 14, 9, 3, and 1 in 26 minutes against them. So, some good numbers historically for Gafford against the Raptors. There's definitely some mid-tier plays.
Remember we were asked about Gafford last night, and then we were like, it doesn't matter, Drummond. And then Gafford goes for 44, but it didn't matter actually because Drummond went for 80 fantasy points. So shout out to Daniel Gafford for keeping on.
And thank you for Andrew Drummond for doing exactly what we hoped he would do.
Yes, that is also correct. Even Brolo to an extent, if there's no Giannis, right? Oubre, we talked about Oubre. Des.
Yeah, we like Oubre a lot here tonight, Des. We're playing a lot of Melton, but Oubre is obviously a decent pivot for him. Yeah, listen, we talk about this a lot too. When Giannis sits, there's obviously Brook Lopez. Now the difference this year from years past when Giannis sits is that there's now Dame Lillard, who has a 45% usage rate when Giannis was out before. In the years past, it was Middleton and Drew Holiday, they have 32% usage rates. It's great. And Brook Lopez would have 1.4 fantasy points per minute or whatever. And now it's just Lillard just takes it all. So Lopez certainly can have a big game still when Giannis doesn't play. The block numbers are pretty legit. He had 42 fantasy points in that game against Toronto when he had 7 blocks. So that's the Brook Lopez game. He's decent at 5,800 for sure. I mean, Hartenstein's right there at 57. Pirtle, Lively had a big night. $5,500.
I love Derek Lively tonight. Just gonna throw that out there. But I've told you this. I said on the show, he needs Luka. I will only play Derek Lively with Luka because he's the perfect pick and roll partner for Luka, who Luka just throws it up and Derek Lively just throws it down.
Agreed. Any other thoughts here? Want to get a lineup build?
Yeah, I am currently in the process of updating our ownership. So we'll have a updated look at some ownership. Maybe not before the end of the show because we are obviously in the lineup building portion, but it will be up on fantasyalarm.com very shortly. And I did give out some teasers today on my Twitter. What you guys can expect if you sign up for the All Pro package with our lineup with our ownership projections. So just throwing that out there as well.
All right, let's start this off here. Are we assuming people are in, or what are we doing?
Like Luke, yeah, we assume people are in until they're not.
Okay.
So how do you want to start? Do you want to start with what's your question, Prince? At the end of the show, can you tell me where I need to start my build? Read Sean Playbook. That's the first step.
Yeah, definitely read Sean's playbook. He has all the player pools, got the core plays out there. But also you can watch this lineup build. We're literally building a lineup, so you can see where we're starting our builds, right? So
yep.
How is the matchup Jared Allen for Lively? I mean, I don't think it's a great one for really, but sometimes defensive matchups a bit overrated. Neither of them are like high offensive usage players. You just get lobs and offensive rebound putbacks there. So I'm going Luka DSJ to start here. You like Sharp at center, which is fine. Again, the value is certainly there for it. 5,600, we want Melton in our lineups here. Small forward, we like Scottie Barnes. Let's see. Power forward, do we have any other values down here?
Trendon Watford is the...
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
You wanted to play Trendon Watford.
No,
that's the... Yeah. I'm just letting you know that's like the value.
Yeah, no, he's complete trash. So I'm good. Let's see.
He's 1.15 fantasy points per minute this year without those players on the floor. So
but he's got to get on the floor himself. So
yeah,
there's no guarantees of that happening. We might be frozen out of Scottie Barnes here, unfortunately. If we go Luka.
If we go Luka, we're frozen out of Scottie Barnes for sure.
Yeah. It's pretty sad. All right, then what do we do? Where's your play here? 57.50, small forward, power forward, utility.
Oubre 57, small forward. Maybe some Tari Eason, power forward.
Sure.
And then we probably have around 6K, 5,700.
Go Derek Jones, I guess. 65 util.
65 util. Get Toby. Yep.
How do I get to Cam Thomas? What do I got to do to get to Cam Thomas here? I like.
You play Trent Watford.
Nah. Cam Thomas is guard, and these guys have multi-position eligibility down here. All right, so we got a 43 forward. It's gross. 43 forward. Not playing Trent Watford. I guess I can't play Cam Thomas then. Forward. Toby. And then util 51. Can you go Gary Trent? I'm fine with that. Or Reed. Would you rather double center with Reed?
I would prefer Reed over Gary Trent.
That works. All right, so $300 left over. Again, Luka's super expensive here, so Doncic, Melton, Oubre, Eason, Sharp, Smith, Harris, and Reed. We got a couple of Philly 76ers in there, a couple of Nets, Houston, Dallas. Sean's playbook's out. Check that out if you haven't done so already. Get us in the Discord and ask any questions up till roster lock, or find us on Twitter. You can tweet at James and I as well, and we'll be there to help you out. with your lineups here tonight. Stay by your phone, stay on the internet, get all the news you need to know, because we are still waiting on some big names on whether or not they will be in or out of tonight's slate. We'll be back tomorrow, pre-show in the morning, live at 5 o'clock Eastern time to get you all the latest news